After a week of voting and over 2,000 people participating, each voting for their top 3 best girls in the RWBY series, we have a pretty good idea as to who the top girls in RWBY are. Compared to last year's poll, where there were over 700 votes cast, this year saw over 6,500 votes being cast. So I'd say it's a lot more representative of the views of the fandom overall. And after the events of Volume 7, things have shaken up quite a bit, with only 2 girls in the top 10 retaining their same rankings as they had last year in last year's Best Girl poll. And it is pretty definitive this year, as the top-ranked girl got over 1,000 votes out of the 6,500 for herself, and there being over a 200-vote gap separating first and second place, as well as over a 200-vote gap separating second and third, so it's pretty definitive as to who the top girls are. But before we get into the top 10, I want to give some honorable mentions to pretty much the top 20, as there are so many amazing girls in the RWBY series that each deserve their time in the spotlight. Now, coming in at number 20 is our favorite cat mom, Callie Belladonna, with 89 votes. Someone we haven't seen since Volume 5, but hopefully we will see soon again, maybe in a bit more of a Blake backstory or something like that, but hopefully we will see her again soon. And speaking of cats, we also have another kitty cat coming in at number 19 with Neon Cat, someone who was just reintroduced in Volume 7, got 94 votes. She was, admittedly a bit annoying when we saw her in Volume 3, but when she comes back now, she still kind of retains those characteristics, but in the new animation, and looking as adorable as she is, I'm not surprised that she is getting a little bit of love as well. And I'm really happy to see that number 18 as well, got 95 votes, is Ilya Amitola. Again, someone we haven't seen since the very beginning of Volume 6 when she said goodbye to Blake. I would love to know what she's up to now, working with Gira in not really reforming the White Fang, but starting up another movement, and something I hope we can see soon, even if it's just, a brief image somewhere here or there, maybe just a letter to Blake from Ilya to see how things are going on, would be amazing to see. Now, number 17 is a character we don't know really much about in the RWBY series, Summer Rose, who got 101 votes. We got little hints at in Volume 7 that, her last mission was not an Ozpin secret, but was a Summer secret, as well as some, more disturbing images of Summer when RWBY was confronted by Salem, and Salem gave some hints that, maybe Summer confronted her, so hopefully we'll get more in Volume 8 on Summer Rose. And maybe in Volume 8 we might see number 16 as well, Emerald Sustrai, who got 107 votes. Someone we haven't seen at all since Volume 6, but I'm really happy people remember her, want to see more of her, and she's still making it this high up the list. And speaking of characters who, she did appear in Volume 7, but not really in that much of a significant role. But number 15 was Maria Calavera, the Grim Reaper, with 115 votes. After Volume 6, as I said, her relevance kind of dropped off, but I'm glad that she's still as popular as she is, that a lot of people still love her character, the snarky old lady of the RWBY series who has some great quips and, hoping Cordovan, well, maybe she's dead. That line is still going to be one of the best in the entire RWBY series. I'm happy to see that she still has some love on her side. Now we get to number 14, and one of the brand new girls introduced in Volume 7. Everyone's favorite sheep girl, Fiona Time, who got 132 votes, who actually beat out all of the rest of the Happy Huntresses, as Robin actually ranked 21st with 77 votes. So it seems Fiona is the favorite of all of the Happy Huntresses from Volume 7, and it's not really surprising because she's adorable and has probably one of the most broken semblances that I've ever seen, if it works as the way I expect, but, still. Next up, at number 13, is actually someone who dropped out of the last year's top 10, Raven Bronwyn, who got 138 votes. We haven't seen her since Volume 5, and she's a character that myself and many others want to see more of, and I have some ideas on how she's going to be returning for Volume 8. I thought she was going to be returning for Volume 7 because she was the only one who knew about Watts' connection to Salem, but I have some more ideas that I'm hoping will actually prove to be more true and accurate, and that'll actually happen. But moving on, we come to number 12, someone who, appeared in person at the end of Volume 7. We have Salem herself with 141 votes. I have a feeling in the poll, the Best Girl poll of 2021, she's going to be climbing up the rankings, or maybe dropping down the rankings, depending on what she does while she's in Atlas, because, we're going to get a lot more screen time of Salem, hopefully, come Volume 8. And then, coming in at number 11 is a character we haven't actually seen since Volume 3. We have the leader of Team Coffee, Coco Adele, with 142 votes. I'm so happy to see Team Coffee getting some love, and that Coco is still a fan favorite. Well, number 11, but still one of the top girls in the RWBY series, and I love that she made this list. I'm sure After the Fall helped out with that, giving an expansion to Team Coffee's story, etc. We're going to get Before the Dawn, so who knows? Maybe she'll actually be able to climb up the list. But now we get into the top 10 girls of the RWBY series, and the number of votes jump a little bit as well. Coco was at number 11 with 142 votes, but now we jump up to number 10 with 222 votes, with Blake Belladonna, one of our main characters of the RWBY series. Admittedly, she didn't have as much screen time as the other members in Volume 7, because, Weiss is on her home turf with Atlas and the Schnee Dust Company, so of course there's a little bit more focus on her, but Blake still had some pretty good moments. In particular, fighting Elm and Vine alongside Yang, she is still one of the top girls, and I'm glad that she's still making this list. But speaking of who she fought alongside, coming in at number 9 is Yang Xiaolong with 246 votes. Again, didn't get as much screen time as Weiss or Ruby, and was pretty much always on screen with Blake, but still had some pretty good moments. Again, that fight with Elm and Vine, when she activated her semblance, was just so nice. The choreography and everything and all the fights and the way that things were presented were fantastic. But it seems that Bumblebee is ranking 9th and 10th at the bottom of the top 10. But, as you and I both know who the girls are above them, it kind of does make sense. Coming in at number 8 is someone that I am so happy to see on this list. Another member of Team Coffee. Coming in at number 8 with 278 votes is our favorite bunny girl, Velvet Scarlatina. Again, a character we haven't seen since Volume 3, but with After the Fall, Before the Dawn, she is getting some expansion to her story, her character, and she is honestly one of the most adorable characters, and possibly, again, one with an insane semblance, able to memorize and copy anyone's fighting style, and then using her weapon, Anisadora, her camera, to make hard-light copies of any of those weapons and perfectly mimic fighting styles is something so versatile that, I'm kind of intimidated to analyze her for the Phoenix Festival tournament, but we'll get there eventually, and hopefully I'll be able to do that justice. But I'm so happy that she's on this list, that she made it to number 8. She's one of my favorite characters, so this makes me really happy. Now, coming in at number 7 is one of the characters who retained her same rank as last year. We have Nora Valkyrie with 281 votes. Someone, again, unfortunately Team Juniper didn't get that much screen time in Volume 7, but she is still one of the fan favorites, especially with the Renora moment that happened in Volume 7. I'm not surprised she's getting a lot of attention, and she's as popular as she is. Hopefully, we will get Nora's backstory. There was, some hope and hype for Nora to have her backstory in Volume 7, but maybe in Volume 8 we'll get it, because we still need to know how she ended up in Ren's village, and the Nukkalavi pretty much followed her there, it seemed, so maybe there's a connection there. Hopefully we'll get some expansion on that, and we'll see if Nora ends up rising up the list in the future. Now, coming in at number 6 is one character who got a lot more screen time in Volume 7, and who before that we hadn't really seen since Volume 3. One of the Schnee families, and its main representative in Volume 7 was Winter Schnee. Though she was more representing Ironwood's faction, she got 332 votes. She was the one who actually ended up knocking out Raven Bronwyn. Winter took Raven's place on the top 10, though admittedly ranking higher, Winter has gone through a lot in Volume 7, supporting Ironwood to the end where we saw her with her hair down, which she looked fantastic. Hopefully she keeps that style coming in Volume 7, but she's had to go through a lot, has questioned Ironwood's authority, has questioned her own humanity, along with Penny questioning her, etc. Like, she's been through a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she develops come Volume 8. Next, we get into the top 5, and the votes start taking a little bit more of a jump. Winter had 332, but coming in at number 5 has 451 votes. We have Pyrrha Nikos, and she's another one I am just so happy that people still love as much as they do, because she died way back in Volume 3, and it's very likely that we won't see her again in the RWBY series, except for flashbacks maybe, or a little bit of an expansion on her story, though I still have some ideas on how her soul may still exist in the world, and thus possibly have a chance to come back in some way, shape, or form, even if it is manifesting within someone else's body. It won't be Pyrrha as we remember, I don't think, but still, I'm glad to see that she's as popular as she is. You know, maybe actually in the RWBY comics we might get an expansion on her story at some point. We don't know how she became such an iconic person as she was in the world of RWBY, how she became this untouchable warrior, of course due to her resemblance and her own skill, but how did she end up on that path, etc. I would love to know more about Pyrrha's backstory, and hopefully we'll get that at some point in the future. Now, coming in at number 4 is our main character of the RWBY series, Ruby Rose herself, the second person to retain her same rank as last year, coming in with 517 votes, which, since now you know the second person who retained her rank from last year, I think you know what that means for the top 2, which, you know, might make some people very happy, might make some people unhappy, but yeah. Ruby Rose had a lot of time to develop in Volume 7, though still not as much screen time as Weiss, and kind of did take a backseat in some instances, but with Volume 7 focusing a lot more on other characters and expanding Atlas, exploring Atlas, the Aesops, etc., RWBY had to deal with a lot. You know, choosing and being put as the leader of the entire group, having the decisions forced upon her, whether to tell Ironwood, whether to keep secrets from Ironwood, etc. She's been through a lot. At only 17, some of these decisions seem maybe a bit much, but I'm glad that she's getting as much love as she is, and we'll see how she continues to develop and what choices she makes come Volume 8. Getting into the top 3, though, you all know who is the top 3, but how they all stack up against one another is possibly a different question entirely. Now, coming in at number 3, we have the one who made her triumphant return in Volume 7 with 638 votes is Penny Polendina, the girl modeled after Pinocchio himself. She is going to have a very significant role in Volume 8, what with the huge Pinocchio illusions that are coming in the form of, well, the giant whale, as well as herself being Pinocchio, and Geppetto being her father, Pietro. It doesn't really bode well for them, with the terrible dogfish being introduced, or Monstro, you know, the giant whale. So people are probably going to get eaten. Penny's going to have to do some more. Plus now she's a maiden, so that might have had some influence, but she rose up the list and she made it to number 3, though if she wants to make it any higher, she's going to have to make some pretty large jumps. As coming in at number 2 with 849 votes, we have Weiss Schnee, who has been dethroned. She is no longer the top girl of the RWBY series. There was one other in Volume 7 who seems to have risen up the fandom's love a lot more. Risen up the rankings and gained more love is probably the better term, but Weiss Schnee, even with all of her development and all the cute moments she had in Volume 7, especially when she arrested her father, that was just beautiful to see. She still is at number 2, with of course the number 1 spot being taken by the strong, the silent Neapolitan herself with 1,057 votes. Neo is someone that has a lot of personality because, well, she doesn't really speak, so she needs the personality to express herself, and the way that she has been expressed by the animators and everything in Volume 7 has been absolutely amazing. I really have to give kudos to the animators and how they handled Neo's character, because it really was great. And especially with how it left off, she's not looking too happy and is going to end up leaving Cinder in Volume 8. I would pretty much bet money on that, but how that's going to happen is another question entirely. I have a couple ideas on that if you're interested, but Neo is definitively, at this point, the best girl in the RWBY series. Now, there were 200 or 2,000 participants, so I'd say that's a pretty good indicator of what the fandom thinks overall, but do you guys agree with these results? What do you guys think? Is it how you expected? Did this live up to your expectations? How did your best girls do? Did you think that Weiss was actually going to be dethroned, and dethroned by this much of a margin? Because, you know, it's over 200 votes that Weiss has to catch up to get or retake her top spot. So, yeah, this has been a very interesting poll, and I'm really looking forward to doing more in the future, with the next poll being the favorite semblances of the RWBY series, which will start in about 2 weeks from now. Give myself a little gap between each of the polls, as they do take a little bit of time to coordinate, get down all the numbers, etc. So yeah, a lot of semblances that need to be gone over, and I'm going to make at least a couple videos, I think, of certain semblances, expand upon them, and, you know, give my own analysis of them. So if there's any semblances you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll try to make videos on them specifically. If not before the poll, then sometime after, before Volume 8, or at least, you know, sometime in the timeline of the channel, it will most definitely be done, as I want to cover a whole lot of different aspects of the RWBY series. So hopefully you guys enjoy these type of videos, the polls, the theories, etc. And if you do, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. Tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7. Let me know how everything goes, and, you know, if there's anything you think I'm interested in, anything about the RWBY series, etc. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.